Sean, the one thing I can say is
Either way, there was something messy.
Big Sean and Jhene Aiko spent more than a decade telling the world they were soul-tied. But here's the twist. After all that time, the one thing Jhene wanted most never happened. A wedding, a commitment, a real next step. And this is where things get messy, because fans always assumed they were endgame, but Big Sean kept sending subtle signals. Signals most people ignored, that he was never planning to put a ring on it. But that's not all. When you look back at their relationship, the little moments everyone brushed off suddenly start connecting. And the picture they paint is way darker than anybody expected. And listen to this. The more you dig, the more you realize that the breakup everyone thought came out of nowhere might have been building for years. And it all traces back to one truth Big Sean hinted at over and over again. He loved her, sure, but marriage? That was a different story. And the reason this matters is because while Jhene was rearranging her entire life for him, career moves, personal sacrifices, even starting a family, Big Sean kept treating marriage like a distant possibility, something he might get to one day, if everything magically lined up. But here's where it gets crazier. Fans weren't just imagining the disconnect. Big Sean himself said publicly, multiple times, that marriage wasn't something he was rushing into. Meanwhile, Jhene kept dropping hints, sometimes playful, sometimes a little too real, that she was waiting for him to step up. And every time those clips resurfaced online, the internet would explode with people saying, "Girl, this man is not serious." But the real twist? All of that tension didn't start in the last few years. It actually began long before most people were paying attention. And once you see how their story really began, everything starts making way too much sense. And it only gets messier from here. Their story didn't start with fireworks, but listen to this. The spark was already there long before anyone realized. Big Sean and Jhene first crossed paths around 2012, working in the same circles, passing each other in studios, casually collaborating. But even then, people noticed something different. It wasn't loud, it wasn't messy, it was quiet chemistry. The kind that builds slowly, then hits all at once. But here's where things get even more interesting. Even though they didn't go public right away, the signs were there. Every interview, every backstage moment, every little smile was hinting at something deeper. And then, boom, 2015 hits, and suddenly they're in the studio together again. But this time, the energy is crazy strong. Their song I Know drops, and fans immediately clock the vibe. Something had changed, and it gets crazier. Because after that one track, instead of easing off, they leaned all the way in. By 2016, not only were they spending long hours together, but they were working on a full joint album. Not just a feature, not just a song, an entire project. And you know how that goes. Close quarters, late-night sessions, long conversations, the kind of setting where two artists either fall apart or fall into each other. But that's not all. The moment they started pushing their duo, the public chemistry went from subtle to impossible to ignore. Performances, photos, interviews, every appearance looked like two people who were becoming more than just collaborators. It felt natural. It felt effortless. It felt like something that had been building for years. But here's the twist most people forget. While all of this was happening, while the world was watching this new connection unfold, there was a detail lurking in the background, something that would come back to haunt them later. A detail that changed how people viewed their story from the very beginning. Because while their chemistry was undeniable, and while the music was catching fire, Jhene wasn't technically a single woman. And once that truth came to light, everything about the early days of their relationship suddenly hit way differently. And trust me, this is where the story takes a sharp turn. The moment their chemistry became public, fans were obsessed. But then it hit everyone at once. Jhene was still married. And that's when the entire narrative flipped. What started as a cute musical connection suddenly turned into something darker, something people weren't sure how to feel about. Because while their bond felt real, the timing was messy. But that's not even the wild part. People began digging, and the deeper they dug, the more complicated everything looked. Jhene had married producer Dot de Genius in 2014, and even though she later said the relationship was already falling apart, the internet didn't care. They saw PDA. They saw chemistry. They saw a divorce filing right after a joint album. And you already know how the internet works. They put two and two together even when the math ain't mathing. And listen to this. Jhene tried to shut down the whispers, saying her marriage had ended emotionally long before she filed. But fans weren't convinced, because the same week her divorce was finalized, she celebrated with a full tattoo of Big Sean's face on her arm. Not his name, not initials, his entire face. Now imagine how that looked to the public. Cute? Maybe. Complicated? Absolutely. But controversial? Oh, definitely. Quick pause. If you're into the tea so far, like the video, subscribe, and drop a comment with your take. All right, back to the story. And it gets worse, because after that, the twin flame narrative took off. They weren't just dating, they were soulmates. They said it, fans repeated it, blogs amplified it. Every red carpet was a moment. Every interview had a new quote about how their connection was deeper than anything they'd felt before. And for a while, people believed it. But behind all the butterflies and aesthetic Instagram posts, something else was happening, something most people ignored until it was too late. A tiny disconnect that kept showing up again and again. A red flag here, a weird comment there, a little contradiction between what they said publicly and how they acted privately. And here's where it gets really interesting. Even while they were presenting themselves as inseparable, unbreakable, cosmic, Big Sean was subtly distancing himself from the idea of marriage. Not outright rejecting it, but dodging it, sidestepping, changing the subject every time it came up. Meanwhile, Jhene was leaning in, eyes on the future, dreaming about the next step. Two people, two different timelines, and that gap, that tiny emotional mismatch, was about to blow the whole relationship wide open because the cracks were already showing, and what happened next made everything impossible to ignore. By 2018, the cracks were no longer tiny. They were loud, and the internet could feel the shift. 1 minute Big Sean and Jhene were posting love-soaked captions, and the next, silence. Unfollowing each other, no more matching interviews, no more twin flame energy, and that's when everything took a turn. Because the breakup wasn't quiet. Oh no, it was messy, public, and layered with hints that something much deeper had gone wrong. But listen to this. Jhene didn't just move on quietly. She walked straight into the studio and dropped Triggered, a freestyle so raw and direct that fans immediately said, "Oh, she's talking about Big Sean," and she didn't deny it. The lyrics were all frustration, unresolved emotions, and that specific brand of heartbreak you only feel when the person you trusted the most is also the person who shattered you. But that's not the wild part. Right when Jhene was pouring her pain into music, Big Sean released Single Again. And it gets crazier because he put Jhene on the track, the ex he had just broken up with, singing on a song about being single. If that isn't the most Hollywood musician relationship plot twist ever, I don't know what is. Fans were confused, stunned, arguing online for weeks. Were they shading each other, healing together, making art out of chaos? And just when people thought things couldn't get more complicated, they did. Because while Jhene was posting cryptic messages like, "Don't cry for me, I'm already gone," and emotional quotes that had fans genuinely worried about her mental state, Big Sean was seen hanging out again with his other famous ex, Ariana Grande. And it gets worse because the internet went into full meltdown mode. Suddenly, Jhene's post looked less like vague sadness and more like warning signs. Fans begged her to take a break, go offline, check on herself. Meanwhile, Big Sean was out in public living his life, smiling for cameras, acting unbothered, which only fueled the fire. But here's where the story takes another unexpected turn. Despite the heartbreak and the music and the cryptic social media storm, they didn't stay apart, not for long. Every time they tried to cut the cord, something pulled them back. A song, a memory, a moment. And before anyone knew it, they were spotted together again, quietly at first, then more openly. Because even though the breakup looked final, their feelings, yeah, those were far from over. And this next part is where everything spirals. Again, but in a completely different direction. After months of chaos, heartbreak, and cryptic messages, everyone thought the story was over. But listen to this. Big Sean and Jhene didn't stay apart for long. They slipped right back into each other's orbit like gravity pulling two planets together. First, it was small stuff. A sighting here, a studio moment there, little hints that maybe, just maybe, the flame wasn't dead after all. And before fans could even process it, the two of them were officially back on. But that's not all. Because once they reunited, the energy shifted fast. The tension was gone, the awkward distance disappeared, and suddenly they were looking happier than ever. By 2021, they weren't just good, they were glowing. And then, out of nowhere, the announcement hit. Jhene was pregnant, the internet blew up, people were shocked, excited, confused, and everything all at once. And it gets crazier, because this wasn't just any baby announcement. This was the milestone people thought would finally push their relationship to the next level. Fans were saying, okay, they've done the breakup, the makeup, the heartbreak music. Now they're starting a family, Marriage has to be next. It seemed logical. It seemed inevitable. It seemed like everything was finally lining up. Then came the moment that changed everything. The birth of their son, Noah, in 2022. A huge step. A life-changing step. And for a while, it looked like the missing piece they'd needed all along. The interviews were soft. The photos were wholesome. The vibe was, we've finally figured it out. And honestly, people believed it. Because becoming parents usually brings a couple closer, right? But wait, here's where the plot twists. Even with a baby, even with a family, there was still one thing missing. One thing Jhene wanted desperately, and one thing Big Sean kept tiptoeing around. Marriage, commitment, the next step. And every time the topic came up, Big Sean had the same answer. One day. We're working on things. There's still stuff to fix. Meanwhile, Jhene was dropping hints, small at first, then more obvious, that she was ready, like really ready. The "why don't you marry me" moment. Yeah, that wasn't a joke. That was a woman tired of waiting, tired of hoping, tired of being patient for a future she wasn't sure was ever coming. And the craziest part, even after having a child together, Sean still managed to dodge the marriage conversation like it was nothing. Fans started noticing, clips went viral, people began saying things like, "Girl, this man is not going to marry you." And deep down, Jhene must have known something wasn't adding up. Because building a family is easy when the love is strong, but building a commitment requires both people wanting the same thing. And this is exactly where the tension hits a boiling point. Because the next step they didn't take, yeah, that's the step that ended everything. And believe me, the next part takes this story somewhere even crazier. And listen to this. Sean didn't just avoid marriage, he repeatedly explained why he wasn't ready. He mentioned healing, personal growth, inner work, not being in a rush. All the soft, spiritual language that sounds deep, but really means, I'm not doing this. Meanwhile, Jhene was the one seen as grounded, maternal, stable, the one who knew what she wanted. But here's the twist. People close to them say Sean saw red flags in her just as much as she saw them in him. That despite her soft persona and calm presence, she had her own intensity, her own emotional storms, her own patterns that made him hesitate. And if that's true, it explains everything, because hesitation turns into distance, distance turns into frustration, and frustration turns into a breakup that everyone claims they didn't see coming. Except they did. Every sign was right in front of us. And here's the part no one wants to admit. Love wasn't their issue. They had love for days, chemistry for years. But marriage? Marriage requires timing, stability, alignment. And they never had all three at the same time. One was always ready while the other wasn't. One wanted to move forward while the other wanted to slow down. And when two people are stuck on different timelines long enough, the relationship eventually collapses. Because the breakup wasn't just emotional, it came with rumors, accusations, and a twist neither of them expected. The breakup rumors didn't start with a statement. They started with silence. Less posting, a shift in energy fans immediately felt. Then a viral clip claimed Big Sean had a new girlfriend, and the internet went wild. People dissected every detail until Sean finally shut it down, saying he didn't even know the woman. But even after the denial, social media kept spiraling. Jhene made a few small clarifications about her past marriage, and fans ran with it. Old interviews resurfaced, body language got analyzed, and suddenly the narrative wasn't, are they okay? But were they ever aligned? Sean stayed calm and posted normally, which only fueled more theories. And here's the truth. Nothing was confirmed. No breakup, no separation, just one denied rumor and a lot of assumptions. But people were deeply invested, and that emotional investment made the silence feel louder than any statement. Zooming out, their story was never just about romance. It was about timing, expectations, and two people growing under a spotlight. Sean often said marriage requires clarity and patience. Jhene hinted more openly at wanting family and commitment. Different clocks, different needs. Fans created narratives from curated posts and tiny clips, projecting their hopes onto the couple. But even strong chemistry can't solve mismatched pacing. Public relationships look perfect from the outside, but behind the scenes are conversations and struggles no one sees. So when rumors hit, they didn't just expose possible tension, they exposed how much people project onto relationships they don't actually know. Because real life doesn't give clean answers, especially when love and growth don't move at the same speed. When the chaos settled, nothing was confirmed. No breakup announcement, just speculation, timing, and a rumor Sean dismissed. Yet fans felt something had shifted, and that feeling hit harder than any headline. For nearly a decade, they symbolized soul ties, healing, and deep connection. So when rumors surfaced, people didn't just gossip, they mourned the possibility of an ending. But their story isn't tragic. It's real. Even strong love has limits. Timing matters. Growth changes people. And relationships don't always end with villains. Sometimes they end because life pulls two people in different directions. Whatever the truth is, breakup, pause, or simply privacy, Sean and Jhene will always be connected through their son, their music, and their history. Love doesn't vanish because the internet wants closure. And real relationships aren't built for social media timelines. Maybe the real answer to what happened is simple. We're not supposed to know yet. Some chapters unfold quietly, off camera. And that's why their story still hits so deeply. Because it reminds us that love is complicated, evolving, and sometimes unfinished. If you're loving the tea so far, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more daily celebrity news and gossip. Drop a comment below. I want to know what you think about this drama. And don't forget to share this video with your friends who live for celebrity updates. We've got so much more coming up, so stay tuned.